Yeah. Pro Fan Sports Podcast. Let's get it. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam. Sean on the mic, very flat too. Keep you updated, that's what we do. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Pro fans, tune into the program. Every single week, get the dope, fam.
Yo, what to do, everybody? It's your boy, John Altidor, with Pro Fan Sports Podcast, back at you with another one with my boys, Barry. Vlad couldn't make it today. He's on a business trip. But we got a very special guest in the building. Somebody, we'd probably be really intrigued to talk to. Is senior betting analyst at bookies.com and sports columnist for the Boston Herald, Bill Speros. How you doing, Bill?
Thanks for having me on this somewhat despair-filled Monday.
Yeah, we were talking earlier on, and I wanted to ask you, what was your advice yesterday, on the betting public?
Well, I like to call it emotional hedging. And there was a good price on Florida. They were basically 2-1, depending on where you shopped. They were plus 178 at FanDuel. They were plus 208 at DraftKings. Of course, I'm based in Florida, so I'm not allowed to partake legally, but I'm always in contact with my family and friends up there who bet. And, at that 2-1 price, I actually thought the Panthers were a good bet yesterday. Not only because it was an inkling that they could win, given how games 5 and 6 had gone, but, the fact is, it's not a mortal sin to bet against the Bruins if you're looking to kind of have something in case they lose, right? It's almost like an insurance policy. And if you're facing a game 7 or a playoff game in the NFL or whatever it is, and you like a certain team as a fan, but they're a 2-1 underdog, you ought to consider just betting a few bucks on the other team. So in a worst case scenario, like if you're a Bruins fan, maybe you could have pocketed a few $100. And in the best case scenario, you spend $50 to mentally ensure that the team was going to win, even though there's nothing that you can do that can have an effect on the outcome. I mean, we all know that to be true, right? But we also know that, like, if you stand up in the third period, they're going to lose, right? So, it's like you're sort of, going old school superstitious, but then at the same time, it's like, okay, would it have felt better this morning if you had a $200 ticket and the Bruins lost, as opposed to right now when you have the Bruins losing but no money? So in these situations, when there's that opportunity, those are the things you should consider. And when it comes to betting, and there's always opportunity. We focus a lot, for obvious reasons, on what's going to happen before the game. We look at betting lines, we look at props, you look at parlays, and all these tools, all these options and bets. But in game, during the game, there's always opportunity. And if you're a fan, and if you're somebody who had been watching the Bruins play in this series, and knew, like, your spidey sense told you that, of course they had Swayman in yesterday, but your spidey sense told you that Bergeron wasn't 100%, and maybe you hedge a little bit on that. And so, I mean, hey, if you're confident you want to go all in on the Bruins because you think that's the play, that's fine. I would never recommend betting on a certain team just because you're rooting for them. If it's a small amount of money, and every dollar figure is relative, someone $10 is a small amount, but to somebody else it's a lot of money. To some people, $50 is a small amount. To some people, that's a lot of money. So I would say whatever you consider a small amount, you want to bet on the Bruins because you're a Bruins fan, that's fine. That adds to the entertainment value. But when you face a unique situation like you faced yesterday, and you have a chance to double your money if the other team wins, that's something to consider next time. I don't know if we'll ever get that with the Celtics. I can't see any opponent that they're ever going to play to be a 2-1 underdog in a game 7. given the quality of the opponent. So I don't know if you'll have that opportunity in the Celtics series, but these things always come up. If you're following a game and you're registered, there's going to be 7 betting apps in mass starting like in a couple of weeks. So if you're FanDuel or DraftKings or BetMGM and you're watching a game and it looks like you have a feeling that the Red Sox are going to come back, even though they're losing by 2 runs, and they might be plus 180 or plus 200, that's an opportunity that, you can make a bet. And, maybe you're hedging your bet originally. Maybe you weren't even thinking about betting on the game. But as you always get a feeling if you're watching a game with your buddies and you say, damn it, I think they're going to win this game or they're going to lose this game. That's an opportunity now, if you want to do it legally, to, place a wager and get a good price when you wouldn't have necessarily gotten that price before the game.
Absolutely. I'm not really a betting person, but a lot of my friends are, and I like to see them win, but I don't think any of us saw. Well, I mean, maybe we might have saw it, but I don't think any of us would have bet against the Bruins living up here and everything. What in yesterday's game would you say, was the main reason why the Bruins lost the game?
Ooh, I got one. I guess the quickest answer to that question is that they didn't score first, because that was a constant in those last 3 games that Florida won. They scored first in each of those 3 games. And you got a sense that, it always felt like the Bruins were sort of climbing out of a hole. That when you're trailing in any game, you use so much energy. You use extra energy on defense. You use extra energy. You're pressing more. I think we all agree that it looked like they were pressing and pushing, and they were tired. It's game 7. They've already played whatever it's been, 100 or 89 games or whatever it's been. So I think from that particular game yesterday, I think not scoring first was critical. That would be the most critical of a million screw-ups.
Yeah.
No, for sure. I think another or other reasons of why they ended up losing were, goaltending and in defense, making too many turnovers either in their own zone or in the neutral zone and not really able to clear the puck. And then the goaltending yesterday was, better but the previous 2 games wasn't very good. Now, do you think they should have made that goalie change sooner in the series once they saw that Omar was struggling and he was hurt and really going through those injuries and it was negatively affecting, his performance and, and also negatively affecting the team? What are your thoughts on, what they should have done at goalie and, on how bad the defense was in the last 3 games?
Well, we start with the goalie. I went to game 4 in Sunrise. I live in Florida, drove down, met my son and his girlfriend. We had a great day. It was a great game. They looked fantastic. And I actually looked and I tweeted during that game. I tweeted that Omar looks gassed. And that was the game that they won. And to me, he looked gassed in game 4. So I would have made the switch heading into game 5 for a couple of reasons. One, and of course, we just learned this afternoon that Omar was playing with an injury. He was hurt, which again is not a knock against the athlete. Of course, hockey players play hurt, right? I mean, Bergeron had a punctured lung and he played. Greg Campbell played with a broken leg to stop a power play. We know that these guys play hurt. It's not a knock on the goalie off of Patrice Bergeron for wanting to play when they're hurt. That's what they do. They know nothing else. To me, it's on the coach, whose job it is to coach and manage the players, to look at his goalie. And if I am in section 3, like 10 of FLA Arena, sitting way high up, looking 150, 180 feet across the ice, and I can see that this guy doesn't look right. The coach who sees him every day in practice and every game should have known that he wasn't right. And I don't understand why Swayman didn't play game 5. there was also the reason of the scheduling. Game 5 was on a Wednesday. This was Sunday. If you play Swayman on Wednesday and you tell Allmark, look, you're going to have the whole week off because Game 6 wasn't until Friday. So he could have had from Sunday through Friday off. He would have had 5 days off. He could have even stayed in Florida. You know, they could have had some scrubby from Providence sitting in there. They could have said, look, stay here. Don't even fly back with us, you know, or whatever. But that would have given him 5 days of rest for Game 6 if there was a Game 6. So, you know, there were both strategic errors made in terms of the deployment of the goalie and in terms of not noticing or not being coach enough, you know, if that's a word, to say, look, you know, we have a guy, and again, they did this all year, right? They won 65 games by playing the Swayman every third day. So it just baffles the mind. Why all of a sudden change up, especially when the goalie was hurt, which obviously you knew about it because you were the coach. Now, as far as the defense goes, the defense was really shaky the whole series. I know there was a lot of talk about line changes, but they were getting hit. The Panthers ragdolled them the whole time. They were hitting, they were checking, they were everything, and they won the series. So it manifested itself in the outcome, but they were everything that you want a hockey team to be. And it was almost as if the Bruins didn't know that you could hit the other team. It was like, oh, can we actually check these guys in the corner? Can we forecheck them? Can we, you know, actually get the puck out of the zone? And then finally in the third period yesterday, what happened? They told the defenseman, start shooting the puck. And so Carlo shoots from the blue line. The deflection goes 20 feet and Pasternak drills it in the net. That's something they should have been doing the whole series. I don't understand why they never let the defenseman just bring the puck up and dump it in the zone. There was so many issues with just those two parts of the game that, you know, and it was like all these different things coming together. And plus the Panthers, to their credit, out hustled them and did everything better than they did, and they won. And I don't understand why some of these things happened. I don't understand why the defense all of a sudden decided not to show up, or decided, you know, McAvoy decided he can't check anymore. I don't understand any of that. But you know, today we hear about the injuries, and you know that's always the first thing. But again, that just a further indictment of the coach in my part. You know, if somebody's hurt, he's hurt. If it's Patrice Bergeron, if it's Tom Brady, if it's Paul Pierce, if it's, you know, Bill Russell, if you're hurt, you're hurt. If you can't play, you can't play.
Yeah.
And it's the coach's job to do that. You know, of course, Patrice Bergeron is going to want to play. That's what makes all these athletes great, is that they're all playing through pain, that we have no idea what it's about. You know, we wouldn't even get to football players. We all talk about hockey players, but football players, I mean, they're always in pain.
Always.
You know, and you have to learn the difference between pain and injury, right? You know, oh, well, everybody's in pain. We're all in pain. Brady, Gronk, Willie McGinnis, you know, Vince Wilfork. You go down the list, Ty Law. They'll always talk. If you bring that up, they'll talk about that stuff nonstop. Like, so, yeah, you're always in pain. But if you're injured, then the coach has to say, sorry, you can't play anymore. And Montgomery did not do that with the goalie, and he didn't do it with Bergeron. And I think it cost them dearly on both ends.
Sure did, no question about it.
Absolutely. You know, I think, you know, the day after, the Bruins have been getting killed in the media. So I know most of our supporters, they're probably sick of hearing, you know, how the Bruins had, you know, the biggest choke job in NHL history, it seems like, right?
It's up there.
It's pretty high up there, you know, in some of the worst losses in Boston sports history here. You know, they're making their mark. But let's move on to something that's happening that, you know, that's still happening for Boston anyway, which is the Celtics. You know, they've moved on to the second round. You know, they're facing Philadelphia 76ers, and Joel Embiid is officially doubtful and out for the game today. as a betting analyst, what would you say to people looking to bet on, these games versus Sixers?
Well, depending on if and when someone like Embiid plays, if he's not playing tonight, but let's say he says he's going to play game 2 or game 3, I think Shaq had a great line the other night after the Hawks game when they asked him about Embiid, and he said, "Big man with a brace on his knee makes me worry," and Shaq would know, right? Yeah. So when I heard that stuck in my head, and I'm thinking, "Oh my God, he just nailed it." Because even if he's healthy enough to play, I mean, what were we just talking about? Bergeron, Omar, these guys were not healthy enough to play, obviously, right? And it's not a criticism of them, and I think most fans, as upset and despondent as they are today, they're not criticizing the players for playing hurt. They're criticizing the coaching staff for allowing them to play. And I think with Embiid, you might see the same situation. I mean, Philly might be putting him out there. Doc Rivers might be putting him out there when he really shouldn't be playing. I guess the question is 50% Embiid better than half of nothing? Yes and no, I guess. And I think we saw a little bit of this with the Bruins, and you may see this with Philadelphia. If he's playing, but he's not 100%. If you're playing with the MVP and you see him on the court mentally, you might think, hey, phew, he's on the court, so we're good. So, even if I let up, he's going to carry the burden. I think that's what happened with Bergeron in game 5. I think the other players let up. And you may see the same thing with Philadelphia if he comes back and he's not 100%. So if I'm betting on this, you certainly want to look at his props, his player props, and any numbers that look artificial on the high end, you might want to lean toward the under on those. And maybe even the under on the totals. If he's producing most of their offense and he's not playing or he's limited, I think that'll play to the Celtics to their credit. When they show up, they'll play defense all day. They love to score, right? Who doesn't, right? I mean, don't we all love to score? Yeah. But they have shown, despite their shortcomings in last year and this year, that they'll play defense if they have to. I get when you play the Hawks, I guess you figure you're just going to outscore them, so you don't care if they score 70 in the first half. But Philadelphia is a different team, I think. So the Celtics will want to shut them down. So I guess my 10,000 foot view would be to sort of lean toward the under, maybe in the game totals, lean toward the under in some of these player props. If Embiid's involved, I'm looking at the line right now, it's 10.5. The thing with the NBA games and point spreads, this will be a 12-point game or a 9-point game. It'll be this the other night against Atlanta, 128-120. The line was 7. It wasn't decided until there were 30 seconds to play when the Celtics scored on their last possession, which you didn't even why are they even shooting the ball? They didn't have to. So when you're betting these point spreads, it's going to come down to the last, inbound play where he heaves up a 3 and it hits and Philly loses by 9 instead of 12. That's when you have a 10.5-point line, it'll break like that 50% of the time, and then 50% of the time it'll be a blowout either way. So I would tend to lean toward the under in totals. Maybe not necessarily look at the line in this game, and maybe look at the under, and then see how it goes, see how they play, and if they're running them off the court, the line will adjust. But I think they're at a point right now where they're not going to let up like they did against Atlanta. Like they did. Even in that first game, right, when they had the 30-point lead and it's whittled to 12. Hopefully they've learned their lesson. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt right now, especially after how well they played in the fourth quarter the other night. And to say, I think they're going to start closing people out. So maybe you want to start leaning toward the Celtics on the line before it adjusts.
I mean, I hope so, because as we've been watching this team, things like playing down to their competition and then also making it more difficult and harder and tougher on themselves has been a common thing. as the playoffs have gone along, not only this year, but the previous playoff runs that they made. That's typically and usually what tends to happen with this team. So now, particularly with Joel Embiid, banged up, at least out for game one, probably most likely out for game two, since game two's Wednesday night. Now, how worried should Celtics fans be about playing, about the Celtics playing down to their competition and, making this series more difficult and prolonging it than it should go? Because we saw that was the case with, Atlanta, where it should have ended in like 4 or 5 games, and it ended up going 6 games, which they shouldn't even had to play that 6th game. It should have ended in game 5, but unfortunately they collapsed and weren't able to win that game. So now, how worried should is it that possibly could be the case in this series? Particularly playing with the Joel Embiid against the Joel Embiid-less Sixers team.
Well, I was very critical of the Celtics in the paper, and have been on social media during those 2 big lapses against Atlanta. But I was positive today because I was very, very impressed with how they closed it out the other night. That fourth quarter was spectacular. I mean, it was like everything, so we know they can do it, right? They can play this way. And they're healthy too, which good for them, right? They're healthy. Giannis was hurt and Embiid's hurt. Players are falling left and right. It's that time of year. The Celtics are healthy, which is awesome. They certainly have the talent and personnel, to make it to the finals. I don't know if Steph's ever going to lose another finals, but that's a different podcast. But I would
this year.
He's unbelievable.
I know. He sure is incredible.
But I would think that the Celtics are capable of learned behavior. And so maybe, I don't know how much this matters. Maybe they saw what happened to the Bruins and they're like, yikes. That's a great example for the coach to say, look, guys, we can't mess around. We can't play down to our opponent. We got to step on the gas and we got to keep it on the gas. I wrote the other day that, pretty soon they're going to run out of second chances, because you run out of second chances as the playoffs get deeper and deeper and deeper. They had 2 against Atlanta. You figure they'll have 1 in this round, and then that's it. They're not going to have any more second chances. Once you're facing the Heat, forget it. So I would hope that they've woken up, so to speak. I don't know what's in their minds. I don't know if they just feel like, hey, as long as we win, but I don't think that's not good enough. I hope it's not good enough for them. Yeah. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because of the other night, but this will be the last time I give them the benefit of the doubt, because they should really win this series decisively, and they should make sure that they're well rested and ready for what most likely is going to be the Jimmy Bucket show. A fellow Marquette grad, I might add. I would hope that they don't do that. They shouldn't, because they've done it. So you would hope that they don't repeat the same mistakes. So we'll have to wait and see, so to speak.
Well, so you're pretty sure that the Heat are going to beat the Knicks, even with Jimmy Butler injured and twisted and rolling that ankle that he did yesterday and not really being effective.
Ankles don't concern me. I mean, the Knicks are pretty deep, but they're the Knicks.
That's a good point.
I mean, they haven't won a title since Nixon was president. So,
wow.
I'm not, they have to, how you were taught, you just asked me about, the Celtics, are they going to not play down to the opponent? They have to show me, the Knicks have to show me something too.
Yeah.
I think the Knicks,
True.
I don't want to take anything away from them. They're a really good team, and they're a good playoff team. I think they're built like a playoff team. I think they have all the right elements, but they're still the Knicks. So I give them all the credit in the world if they beat Miami even with Butler's injury, and maybe it's worse than we know because we're learning today about how really sinister these injuries can be when it comes to winning. They certainly can't win without him, but I have to keep leaning toward Miami until I'm proven wrong, just because of their pedigree and the fact that the Knicks haven't won since before the internet.
Yeah, and I mean they're going through their own injuries with Julius Randle, being at
well again, I think that's another point, and I know we just said this, but look at the Celtics. Excuse me. Even Rob Williams looks good, right? He looked great the other night.
Yeah.
He's getting up
I
and
hope he can stay that way.
well, again, but the Celtics look healthy. They are healthy. And so to me, the fact that they have home court now and they're healthy and they have teams in front of them that they're certainly capable of beating. And in a best case scenario, maybe in taking them out in 5 games, although I'm sure the Knicks will give them some trouble if they indeed beat Miami. I think they have a really good path. I don't want to say clear, but they have a solid road to the finals right now. They're healthy. They have home court. They toughed it out against Atlanta. Granted, it was Atlanta. So everything's kind of aligned for them. I mean, I think last year it was kind of a surprise I was surprised when they beat Milwaukee. I didn't expect it.
Yeah.
So this year it's a little less, the hill's maybe not as high, but there might be a couple more. So they, if there's, I'm more, I would say more positive than not positive that they'll reach the finals. I just think that they have everything in their favor. The only thing is the injury, of course, you don't know. God forbid if someone gets hurt, you don't know about it. You don't know what's going to happen. But that aside, I really do like them to reach the finals.
Yeah, I think for my last question, the Bruins, they had a rookie head coach, but and you spoke about, pushing the right buttons and, maybe getting Hallmark out of there, for a couple games there. Now we have Joe Mazulla on the Celtics, and I think he learned a couple things in the last series. Now he's facing Doc Rivers, who, has a lot of experience in the playoffs, as a basketball coach, period. What do you think about Joe Mazulla and what he has to do to make sure that, we come out victorious, on the Celtics?
Well, first I have to give my shameless Doc Rivers plug. Another Marquette grad. I actually went to Marquette same year Doc was there. He was there for 2 years.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
I was a freshman. He was a sophomore. I did walk across the street with him once. And I also lived with Chris Farley when I was at Marquette, but that'll have to be another podcast. But yes, I was at Marquette with Doc back in the day, and he was a star on the team. And, so I go back a ways with him. And I've been in Orlando for a while, so I was here the whole time he was coach of the Magic.
Wow.
So, I mean, Doc's resume is pretty impressive. And again, he hasn't reached the final since he left the Celtics. Yep. So I always like to put that out there just as a zinger. I think you talked about Mazulla learning. I think one thing I noticed was he called that timeout the other night with 4:30 to play.
Yeah, he
whereas
did.
in Game 6, he must have thought that he had timeout. He thought it was like Chris Webber or something.
He was still watching like an assistant.
He was like, I guess we don't have a timeout. He called that time. I remember. I made a note of that. I said, oh my God, he called a timeout because it was like a 4:31 pivotal time of the game. And so you're right. That's a great learning. That's literally like you can point and say, that's right. He learned that. He learned that about the timeouts. So I think, the concern with him is maybe making sure that he isn't so wedded to analytics. If he sees a game situation that, requires an adjustment that goes against what's on the sheet, because maybe Joel Embiid is hurt. He's in street clothes tonight. I think he's learning for sure. It showed the other night. So perhaps he will continue to learn. I don't see coaching in this series is such a big deal. I just think that Celtics talent is going to overwhelm as long as they stay focused, like we've been sort of worried about since the game 2 of the finals last year. So, you know, you don't want to say, you can't discount what Doc is doing. I guess in a situation like this where maybe Doc is sort of coaching his team, his advantage is to get his team to the Celtics level, as opposed to if the teams were even, then he would, you know, take them to a higher level. I think what he's going to do is this series is maybe be able to coach them up to where Boston is. So as long as Mazulla doesn't bring him down, I think that'll kind of negate it.
Bear, do you have a last question?
Yeah, I do. So my last question is, the Celtics do make the finals, you know, as we, you know, expect them to, be in the favorites in the East. Is there anybody in the Western Conference that, you know what I'm saying, you'd be concerned about, that'd be a bad matchup for them and that could, you know, keep them from, you know, winning a title and getting, you know, and bringing Banner 18 to Boston this year? What do you think about how they match up versus the teams that are remaining in the Western Conference playoffs?
Well, I actually picked them to beat Denver in the finals when we started sports betting in Mass. So I think, you know, that sort of matchup would suit them well, because if they can get a team that wants to score and, you know, that isn't really used to defending, a team like that, you know, I think they could handle them well. You know, I'm sorry, I'm still, until he's dead and buried, I am 100% like Steph's gonna beat him. And
Again, this year again?
I don't know. I don't know if they're equipped to get past Golden State mentally in terms of, you know, are they going to shake off what happened last year? Because they're a better team. I mean, they have talent. But I mean, it's almost like the old Lakers playing the Celtics before Magic showed up. Yeah. And every time they had the Celtics beat, in the days of Cousy and Russell and Chamberlain and Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, every single time the Lakers had them, and then the Celtics won. And I feel that, East Tatum is on a run. I feel as if this Warriors team with Steve Kerr, you want to talk about a coaching advantage in the finals. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You know, with Steve Kerr and Curry and Draymond, I mean, that team, as a fan, as a betting analyst, as a columnist, I'm like, there's no way they can beat these guys. I mean, they would have already been psyched out. But a lot of other teams, even the Lakers, because I think, you know, they're just waiting to fall apart physically. I am genuinely concerned about the Warriors, just because they're the Warriors, and until you beat them, they're still the champs.
Now, I feel like, but the biggest thing is that I think we have a better bench, particularly this year. You know, we have, you know, the Malcolm Brogdons, 6th man of the year, who's, you know, played exceptionally well in this season. I think if we had him last year, you could make a case that the Celtics, you know, win that finals if they had a Malcolm Brogdon, and then also a much improved Derek White, who, you know, who's, you know, flourished and thrived in his role and is playing pretty close to an all-star level. And, you know, he wasn't the same player last year, you know, that he is now. He certainly looks more comfortable and is playing at a much more high level, more consistent. So, you know, and like you said, all their starters are healthy. So I feel like if all the starters stay healthy, you know, Malcolm Brogdon plays well, Derek White plays well, and stuff, that should be enough to beat the Warriors team, even as great as, you know, the Warriors aren't as great as Steph Curry, you know, is, as we saw yesterday, that they should be able to, you know, beat a Warriors in a 7-game series, even though it'll be close, no question. But, you know, with an improved bench and supporting cast, you know, around Tatum and Brown, the Celtics should, be able to win the finals this time around if they do see them, this year.
Well, everything you said is right, and the Celtics would argue that and say we made all these adjustments in the offseason and during the season to make sure that we have the tools to beat Golden State in the playoffs. Like you gear up for a certain team, right? We saw this with everybody against the Patriots for 20 years. And certain teams got it right, most teams didn't. And I agree with you that they would have an advantage on paper, but again, maybe it's just me. I'm still scarred about last year because it was like, wow, these guys should blow them out, and then the Warriors just show up and they're the Warriors, and as the Warriors Invitational continued, and they just mentally melted down. So that would be my concern if they were able to not get past that part of their game where they don't get psyched out and they don't fall apart and they don't, they didn't choke because they lost to the Golden State Warriors. You don't choke to the Golden State Warriors, but you certainly, they had 100 turnovers in that series.
Oh yeah.
So give me 85 turnovers and everything you said, and I can like him in 7.
Yeah, that's very.
Dude, like the Warriors in 7.
No, the Celtics.
Celtics.
In other words, if they could play cleaner with all the personnel changes that they made, like to the bench especially, Brogdon's been fantastic. The hell of a move, great trade. Mm-hmm. And they can cut 20% on the turnovers. Then I could, even with Steve Kerr as a head coach over Mazulla, and even with Steph Curry being Steph Curry, those improvements that they made combined with a 20% decrease in turnovers would give them a shot.
That's fair.
Absolutely, Bill. Well, Bill, we really appreciate you coming on Pro Fan Sports Podcast, man. Thank you. I
loved it.
You dropped on us today, man. It's not every day we get a betting analyst on here, so the show is definitely unique, and we loved your perspective on here. So hopefully we can get you back on here. If the Celtics move on to the next round. Yeah, let's hope so. We've had enough sports to spare. But hey, the Red Sox are tied for the wild card, so everything is possible. Yeah. Hey.
Oh, great. Oh, wow.
They're tied for the wild card. You're going to hear that all season, by the way. They're tied for the wild card. Well, so is everybody else. They don't tell you that part. All right. Well, have a good night, Bill, and enjoy the Celtics. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciated it.
No problem. Thanks for coming on and joining us. It was a pleasure having you on here, and hope to have you back on here soon. So thank you so much, Bill. It was a great meeting you, for sure. Yes, sir. So that was Bill Speros, gambling analyst, betting analyst, as well as a columnist for the Boston Herald on sports. So you guys should follow his work and follow him on social media. We're also on social media. We're at Pro Fan Sports on everything except for Instagram, and that's at @profans_sports. We drop content every single day on the social media platform. We're dropping an episode every week on YouTube. Like and subscribe, hit the black button. That's the best way you can support us. So until the next episode, man, thanks for watching. So everyone, have a good week. See y'all next week. Thanks for your support.